All right, so obviously quiet couple of weeks leading up to this. Last time we got the chance to speak with both of you was around the draft. Can you just walk me through what the last couple of weeks have been like for you?
Yes. So after the draft, you start to work on the players that don't get drafted. You end up bringing in Tamar Bates on a two-way contract. So you're trying to navigate those things. Then a couple days later is free agency. So as you navigate the prior two-ways, Trey Alexander, PJ Hall, you can give a qualifying offer, or it's called a required qualifying offer, basically to make them restricted. So you wait on those, figure out your two ways. Then a couple of days later, free agency starts. You can start talking to agents and start negotiating player contracts. So as that was going on, we had already done our legwork on calling teams around, trying to figure out what was available trade-wise. And then the Cam Johnson MPJ trade came to fruition about an hour after free agency technically opened. So we executed that trade. Shortly after, we got the commitment from Bruce Brown. We started working on, after we created a trade exception from the Michael Porter trade, we had an ability to take on a bigger contract, and that ended up transpiring into taking on Jonas Valanciunas' contract. So we ended up agreeing to that trade, and then the next morning signing Tim Hardaway Jr. And so, yeah, it was a kind of a crazy 24 hours. And then when you kind of do those things, then you have to wait and make the trades official and the signings official. There's a moratorium that comes up in July. When that passes, you can make it official. And then yesterday we made Jonas Valanciunas trade official. So the heavy lifting is just about done, and now we can kind of take a deep breath. We have still one open two-way spot, some training camp options and different things like that for the gold, but we feel really good about where things are at.
What appealed to you about Cam Johnson in a trade?
The human being first is he's just a great guy. He's someone that will add to the culture in the locker room very quickly. His IQ, his emotional intelligence, his passion of winning, his competitiveness, his shooting. We talk about guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot. He does all those things, and we feel like he's going to be a big part of the Nuggets team moving forward.
You mentioned the ability to handle the ball. Just curious about outside of Jamal. We know Jamal is going to handle the ball a lot. What does that look like for the rest of the roster behind him?
Yeah, I think we saw with Bruce Brown when we had him before. We look at him, Jalen Pickett, and we have Julian Strother, CB. I mean, guys that we feel like can take more of a role in potentially handling, but we feel like we have a lot of depth now, and Jalen Pickett's coming back, and we feel like he's going to take a step next year as well.
We know kind of what Bruce brings in terms of energy, defense. This is a pretty different bench than the one he played with in 2023. Curious about how you think he fits in.
Yeah, I think that we honestly just have to wait and see how Coach Adelman and his staff kind of figure it out as training camp approaches. But I think we know Bruce brings a lot of versatility, and he can fit in a lot of different ways. He can finish games. He did that when we had him before. So, in terms of the exact details, I'm not sure, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to fit in a lot of different ways.
What did you like about Tim Hardaway Jr.?
I think first off, his veteran presence. He's been around so long. He's been in a lot of winning organizations. He's seen a lot. He's had a great career. His shooting is probably the main thing. We talked about adding depth and just more players that we feel like potentially can close games in the playoffs if we need them to, depending on health. And the whole point of adding depth was, in theory, our starters playing less minutes and kind of resting them as it goes forward, hopefully deep in the playoffs. So when you add a great shooter to our team, I think he can fit in a lot of different ways, a lot of different rotations.
When you're building a team around somebody like Nikola Jokic, how does somebody like Tim Hardaway Jr. fit in?
Yeah, I think, obviously Nicola's vision, his passing, the way he is able to space the floor. I think when you add a shooter like Tim, it's pretty easy to see how he can just get a lot of open shots. And yeah, I mean, he'll play perimeter defense. He can handle the ball. He does a lot of things, and he's a great scorer. But the simplest approach is he can just stand in the corner and knock down shots when Nicole is playing with him.
Is there kind of a balance to be found for guys that can play with Nicola and then also kind of give him a rest and maintain, if not grow, leads when he sits?
Absolutely. I think that's why the acquisition of Jonas Valanciunas was so important for us, was being able to just throw different lineups out there and not feel like the group is going to be hurt by not having Nicole play. I mean, Nicole is such an amazing player, and I feel like maybe we rely on him too much because of that. And hopefully this year we can have more balance in the lineup, so when he's not playing, we can maintain the leads or even grow the leads.
You talked a little bit about the move for Jonas. How did that move? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so we registered interest on him. We've followed him for quite a while now and had a lot of interest in him. So he signed last summer in Washington, I believe, and at the trade deadline, he was traded to Sacramento. At that time, we were deeply involved in discussions potentially to acquire him at the trade deadline. We felt for a long time that he was a perfect fit with Nicola as either a backup or potentially playing with him in certain lineups. And just a starting level player that can just help the entire balance of the team. So when Sacramento has new management, so when they were in place, we registered interest and just said they said they liked him, but if anything comes up, they will let us know. And then when free agency started, I don't know the exact cap mechanisms they use, but they had to create room and make some moves for another signing they had. And so in the trade for Jonas and Dario, they were able to save some money and I think create some flexibility. So because we had registered interest, they were looking at different deals and they called us and asked if we were interested.
It seems like he's kind of a different backup center than what you guys have had the last couple of years, just in terms of play style. When you're constructing this roster, how do you think he shapes the identity of that bench?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that you can play through him, and so you can play a lot of similar ways as our starting unit, and you can stagger the starters with him pretty much however you want because of that. But because he's such a big person and such a big defender and a presence in the paint, that I think you can play anyone else with him and you can essentially have a strong rotation and the depth you need to maintain the lead.
I asked John on draft night if you guys would ever play double big. Does getting JV change that?
Yeah, it changes it because he's such a special player. But yeah, like I said about the question prior, I think that we just have to wait and see how Coach Adam and the staff see it in camp. But yeah, I think everyone's excited about all the possibilities with that.
What do you think are the biggest strengths of the new roster?
Biggest strengths, I think we added shooting. I think we added perimeter defense. I think we added IQ. We looked at the special run we had in the playoffs last year and taking Oklahoma City to Game 7. We didn't feel like we were too far off. And I think there was a lot of conversations about how to improve internally. And is that the only thing we need to do? Our jobs are to always focus on getting better, and that's where you make calls and you figure out what's out there. But I think that we feel like we're really close, and adding, I think, the depth will allow hopefully our players to maintain their health longer into the season. And just I feel like health, last year in the playoffs was tricky for us, and so if maybe it takes a little bit of luck, but if we can hit on all those cylinders, I think we have something special here.
This is a pretty unique front office structure. I'm just curious how it worked in signing 2 big free agents as well as making 2 big trades.
Yeah, I think in general, when you have a front office, if it was one person running the team or two people or three people, the responsibilities are still split and the communication is still very consistent. So with John, like Todd, Chad, Nihal, Lane, the rest of our group, and we're all working together. We split the responsibilities. We call teams, based on relationships, and some conversations I had started prior to John coming on. And so those conversations I stuck with. Some conversations John started when he came on, and then he took over those. And so, it's just a lot of fun being able to do it together. And I think that we've focused on making sure we're on the same page all the time and communicating all the time. And it's easy when you have a good friend that you work so closely with. But it's pretty simple when you work so closely and you just collaborate. And it's not just him, it's the whole group together.
Where does you've mentioned him a couple of times. Where does David Adelman fit into all this? How is he involved as you guys are constructing this new roster?
Yeah, obviously he has to be extremely involved in what we're doing, and us understanding what he wants and his vision, how we can move forward with that perspective. So amongst John and I's conversations, the rest of the front office, Coach Adelman is close by. He was up in our office at one point talking about this. We had a lot of phone calls with him to make sure that his vision was being moved forward with the way we see it. But he also did some recruiting, and I won't get into too much of that. But some of these players wanted to talk to him and make sure that the role we envisioned was the same way that he saw it. So he was a great partner for us in closing some of these deals.
A few more for you. What's the best piece of advice you've picked up while working for the Nuggets?
I think, as simple as it is, I think being yourself is the best. Everyone, the intern to the coordinator to the equipment manager to the travel sector, everyone in any of these roles have surpassed crazy amount of odds to get to the job they have. And so I think everyone feels very lucky when you become, a member of the organization. And I think just working hard, trying to add value where you can, and asking a lot of questions is the way to do it. But I think it all starts with being genuine and being yourself. And if you do all those things, I think there's a chance that you continue to grow.
How do you think you've evolved as a front office mind?
That's a great question. I think about when I started with Kiki Vandeweghe was my first boss. Mark Warkatine was the next executive that I worked closely with. Rex Chapman, Brett Barup, they were all running the team together. Mark taught me a lot about scouting and the philosophy, and something that he showed me was how the intel and the analytics and kind of your scouting brain, they all should kind of align. And usually, if they all align, you're probably onto something. And so I learned a lot about, kind of sifting through the biases and the intel. Different analytics can skew things different ways. So I learned a lot from him about that. I started to scout the G League at that time. Masai was the next GM, and he had a different approach, but an unbelievable executive and a really passionate person. I learned a lot from him how to deal with day-to-day things and leadership, and then to be bold and not be afraid of moves. And then Tim Conley came in, and this magnetic energy brings people together, an unbelievable relationship person, and a crazy talent evaluator. So that was the Nikola Jokic era. Obviously drafted him 41, and then you think about those first couple of years and just the process of developing him. And then Calvin Booth came in, and we drafted Christian Brown, Peyton Watson. We traded for KCP, signed Bruce Brown, won a championship. So the whole spectrum is kind of fascinating and surreal to think about. But I think you take bits and pieces from everyone you work for, and you just try to take the good, and you figure out what the good is, and then how that works with your own style, and kind of maintaining your own philosophy. But Yeah, I think you just grow from your experiences, and the Melo trade. I remember talking to Masai a lot about that, and that was interesting. And we had a trade for Timothy Mozgov that was one that etched in my mind with Tim, because we ended up getting a really good deal. So there's sometimes they're big trades, sometimes they're small things, but I think you grow from all these experiences.
This last one's a fun one. Nuggets fans have been trying to workshop some nicknames for you and John. There's 10 Wallace, Ben Wallace. Are any of these sticking?
I mean, I will go with whatever the fans like.
Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.